So the story of my name is I had my name ready to go. Do you remember what it was?
Jack Action.
Yes, of course. So Jack Action and by the way, this year on my cruise, we did a dress as your favorite wrestler night and actually got a Jack Action costume made and had a mullet. And I'll send you the picture. It looked like a 1989 Rockers outfit. I actually sent it to my seamstress lady. I said, make this, but a different version with the mullet. So Jack Action did get a moment in the sun. But I was trying to think of a name. And of course, Action Jackson was a name. And there's a song by a band called Wasp called Jack Action. And I'm like, that's perfect, Jack Action. Or either that or sounds like something you'd find at a porn shop or something.
Oh, you popped me with that one.
So I when I was a kid, my cousin Ray Gilby had actually gotten Paul Stanley's autograph, and he had it in a frame, and Paul Stanley signed the Y with a star at the end of it. So I always signed my name with the star. So Jack Action with the N was the perfect way to put a star at the end. So I signed my book that like hundreds and hundreds of times. And for some reason, you saw this binder, like a school binder that I had or something. And do you remember what happened with this?
Well, I remember whether it was when I read the name, but when you said that was a name you were going to use, having no filter, like I never do, just blurt out the first thought in my head. And I'm like, you can't use that. That's terrible. And you were, I think, a little bit disappointed.
Well, I think the way I remember it was a little bit different where you're like, what are you writing there? I'm like, oh, it's Jack Action. Like, are you going to call yourself that? And the way you said it, I was just like, I don't know. And you're like, that's terrible. It's a terrible name. Hey, Ed, listen to this terrible name. Hey, Lenny, or whatever, right? And I was like, no, that's stupid. So then I had to think of a name. And I literally, it was one of those things like you had, like, okay, the programs are getting made tomorrow. What's your name? And I was driving my 76 Volare, which you know very well. And on the front passenger side, there was a cassette by a band called Halloween, and the album is called Walls of Jericho. And I had thought about Jericho before because there was a Teen Titans character called Jericho who's the worst comic book character ever. He's a mute, and he's got hair like Garfunkel. And his superpower is that he can like transfer into different people's bodies and whatever the hell he can do with it.
All the kids are like, who's Garfunkel?
Yeah, exactly. So Jericho kind of was in the back of my head for that. So I said, well, what about Chris Jericho? And I said that, I think it's like, what about Chris Jericho? And once again, you held the fate of my name in your hand. Had you not liked Jericho, I might be something else.
Yeah. And again, the other thing that will play into this is Ed liked it because he was insistent on making you a cowboy, and he thought Jericho sounded Western.
Westerny, right.
Westerny. Do you remember why he wanted to make you a cowboy?
I don't.
It goes back to the Observer and Ed's lack of reading comprehension. Benoit at the time was working in Japan as the Pegasus Kid, but Ed misread the Observer and thought he was the Pecos Kid, and thought Chris Benoit was doing a cowboy gimmick, and he thought you could too.